Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about why human beings are such bad predictors of their future selves and how that's subtly impacting your financial future.
Welcome to Wisdom and Wealth, where we talk about the human side of money. Join us as we dive beyond the numbers, unpacking the psychology of money to equip you with the tools you need to be wise in wealth.
I'm Brendan Frazier, Chief Behavioral Officer at RFG Advisory, and I want you to take a second and think about something. Think back 10 years ago. Who were you at that point? What did you care about? What were your goals? What were the things that you valued in life? What were your preferences? What did you like to eat? Who did you hang out with? Odds are that things have changed a lot since then. Your priorities, your preferences, again, maybe even your relationships. Now let's do this. Think about yourself 10 years from now. Who do you see yourself being? What are your goals? What are the things that you value? What are your preferences? Who are you spending time with? And if you're like most people, when you look at yourself 10 years into the future, you see a version of yourself that's very, very similar, almost identical to who you are today. But this is the thing. If we go 10 years out and we ask the same question we asked at the very beginning, we say, look back 10 years. Who were you? What were your preferences? What were the things that you cared about? Your future self is going to look back on your current self the exact same way. We change way more than we ever imagined. That's what psychologists call the end of history illusion. And if you're not careful, if you're not aware of it, it has the ability to quietly hijack your financial decisions. The end of history illusion was discovered by two psychologists, Daniel Gilbert, and I may not get this one right, so excuse me if I don't, but Jordy Koybach. What they found is that people of all ages, no matter how young, no matter how old you are, believe that they've changed a lot from the past, but they won't change much in the future. In fact, in this massive study they did, people aged 18 all the way up to 68, everyone agreed. They said, yes, I have changed a lot over the last decade. Again, my values, my preferences, my goals, my friendships. But when I look over the next decade, look 10 years into the future, I don't think that I'm going to change that much. In reality, we're all what Daniel Gilbert calls works in progress, pretending to be finished. And when it comes to money and life planning, that assumption is dangerous. It can lead us astray, again, if we're not careful and if we're not aware of it. And that's because when it comes to our finances, so much of what we're supposed to do, the rules of financial success, focus on the future. Here's where I am today, and here's where I want to be in the future, but we're not good predictors of our future selves. We're supposed to save money in case we need it as a cushion at some point in the future. I'm supposed to invest my money so that I can grow it and use it at some point. Maybe I need to put away money for my kids or my grandkids' education to be used in the future. And yet, as Daniel Gilbert and Jordy Koybach told us, as they discovered, we have no idea what our future self is going to be like, what we're going to want to do, what we're going to value, who we're going to be hanging out with. The simple truth is that we're not good predictors of our future selves because we change more than we could ever imagine. But if we're going to plan financially for a future, we need to know how this shows up in our lives and what to do about it. So here's one example. You start thinking about retirement. You lock in a retirement lifestyle vision that you've been dreaming of for years. I'm going to golf every day, and just 2 years, 3 years, maybe 5 years in, you're itching for something with more purpose. You want to do more. Or here's another one. Maybe you overfund some of your goals that actually end up fading. So let's use the example of the kids and grandkids education. Maybe you start saving for your kids or your grandkids education only to at some point in the future no longer have a relationship with them. Or maybe if we don't want to be that extreme, maybe those kids and grandkids decide that they don't want to go to school. Maybe they don't go to college. They want to start their own business or do their own thing. Another example is if you choose inflexible investments. Certain investments that lock up your decision, they're not reversible. Things like real estate investments or other financial instruments like maybe annuities that maybe made sense at the time but don't match your lifestyle today. Or it might be when it comes to estate planning, that you've written your estate plan, you think it's written in stone, you don't need to go back and revisit, but it's all based on today's family dynamics when 10 years from now the dynamics have completely changed. It's really, really easy. In fact, it's common to plan your financial future around a version of yourself that you're not familiar with and probably won't even exist in the future. Here's the example that always comes to mind for me. Eric was a 46-year-old married man. He had 4 kids and a high-income job in the insurance space. He spent almost his entire career up to that point in this job and in this industry, and he liked the job. And everybody naturally assumed, Eric included, that he would just work this job until he retired one day. He started from the very beginning, putting money into his retirement accounts. Having done that diligently, he built up a pretty substantial nest egg of retirement assets. Now here's where the end of history illusion shows up and gets in the way. Eric was making those decisions based on who he thought he would be and what he thought he would want to do in the future. Now here he is, 10 years later, 46 years old, and he's tired of the corporate game. His kids are growing up before his eyes, and he's sitting there thinking, I want to be intentional and maximize the time that I have with them. His values, they changed. Eric was ready to leave his job and to start his own business so that he could have the freedom that he wanted to do the things that he wanted to do with the people that he loved. Only there's one problem. Money was tied up in these accounts with restrictions that required a penalty to access in order to get out of the job that he didn't want to do anymore. So how do we outsmart this bias? How do we overcome and plan for a future when we don't even know what it's going to look like? First and foremost, we have to reframe the way you plan for the future. We need to treat our future self almost like they're a different person, because they kind of are. In fact, I've mentioned it before in this series, but there's an author of the book called Your Future Self who always explains it this way. He says, we see our future selves as nothing more than a stranger. So here are 4 ways to better plan and prepare for a future self that you can't even imagine or envision. Number 1, by far and away, is to create flexibility at every point you can in your planning. Prioritize and favor the strategies that allow you to change and evolve over time, the strategies that offer more flexibility. Here's another way. Do an annual future self review where you take 15 minutes once a year. Maybe it's around your annual review of your finances. Spend 15 minutes and ask yourself, what surprised me about this past year? What surprised me in terms of what's changed? Number 3, write a letter to your future self. This is one of those things that you've probably heard before. We all hear and go, that's a good idea, but no one actually does it because it's not easy to do. But when you do it, it's helpful and it's transformative. You write a letter to your future self, and then you go back and read it during your annual financial review. Reflect on the things that still resonate and also on the things that no longer hit. So you can have a better, more clear picture of the things that have changed, the things that you value, the things you prefer, the people that you want to be with. Number 4, plan around what we would call your core values. So of all the things that tend to change over time, again, goals, preferences, personality to some degree, relationships, there are some core tenets, some core things that are least likely to change, or said differently, they're more likely to persist over time. A popular, common example is prioritizing family time. If you consider time with family to be a priority, that's oftentimes something that carries forward for the majority of your life, if not the rest of your life, barring unforeseen circumstances. And so you can plan around things that typically don't change or that are less likely to change. So for example, if I make a decision to buy a house that's more expensive, but it's closer to my family, that's a decision that's more likely to age well because that's a value that's less likely to change. So let's recap. Number 1, prioritize flexibility in your planning. Number 2, annual future self reviews. Number 3, write a letter to your future self. And number 4, plan around your core values that are less likely to change. Unfortunately, the reality and the harsh truth is this. We are terrible predictors of our future selves. So don't trap your money in the preferences of today. Plan with flexibility, review regularly, and give your future self the freedom to grow into someone that you haven't met yet. As always, if you have questions, if you want to talk, if this sparked any ideas or discussions that you want to have, reach out to your financial advisor and let them know. Until next time, stay wise and wealth.